everyone, and welcome to the October 4th meeting of the Northfield Select Board. It is 6:01 and I'm calling this meeting to order. First up on the agenda is a request from Chris Sellers of the brewery at 4 Star Farm for a temporary liquor license, malt only, for the Great River Challenge coming up on October 8th, this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Northfield Mountain Recreation Center, 99 Millers Falls Road. Chris, you want to come up?
Sure.
It's been a while since we've seen you.
It has been.
Yeah.
Nice to see you over again.
Nice to see you.
And you setting the seats up was worth it, see?
Thank you for doing that. You get the Citizen Award for the night.
Oh, gee.
So, can you just tell us a little bit about, we have the paperwork right here.
Yeah. We are donating, as part of our sponsorship package, to Pour Beer for participants of legal drinking age at the end of the race, with all the other food and things.
Oh, nice.
We'll have soda and, other non-alcoholic things with us as well.
Nice. Okay, everything looks in order. Are there questions from the board?
Sandra, everything checks out? You got all the paperwork? Everything squared away?
There's a thing on here about fee? Fee?
That's your decision, if they're doing it, if they're,
I think we sent you a check. Is that what you're talking about? You should have it shortly.
I should have.
It should be in the mail. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, Nina, good answer.
Happy to pay for it, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, no discussion? Bernie, are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
If he didn't bring any samples, I guess we're all
Darn
set.
it, okay.
I know.
Next time we'll schedule a tasting as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Selectboard tasting would be a pretty cool thing. I haven't done that.
Really? That might be a
You just
conflict
let
of
me know.
interest.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the temporary liquor license, malt only, for the Great River Challenge, October 8th, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Northfield Mountain Recreation Center, 99 Millers Falls Road, for Chris Sellers of the brewery at 4 Star Farm.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Thank you.
You're all set?
All right, we
Thanks so
just
much.
need to sign
Thank
it.
you.
Do you want to take that with him? That's all set, or you have a copy of it, right?
If they can sign it.
We can sign it right now
Make a copy.
Sure.
and make a copy. I hope the weather's going to be nice on Saturday.
I believe it is.
Okay.
This weekend looks great. We had another
Alex
bike tour
will
at the
sign it.
brewery last weekend, and
Oh, that-
Saturday we were just sitting there going like this. and
Oh, the
sprinkled
pedals to
for like-
pints?
Yeah, it
How
sprinkled
was
for like
that?
an hour, and we were totally fine after that.
Oh, great.
Just every 5 minutes I'm looking at the weather.
I know, now that we can track it.
Yeah, the day before it was like 30% for like an hour, and then morning of it's 100% for like 2 hours. Come on.
Did you get a good turnout for the pedals to
We
pints?
did. We had about 75 people.
Excellent.
Pleasant
Excellent.
day enjoying the valley in about 5 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for coming and giving us an update as well.
No problem.
We hope to see you again.
I hope so.
All right. Thanks,
See you
Chris.
guys. Thank you.
See ya. Let's see. We have a 6:15 appointment. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we'll try and get through the rest of some business here. Get that out of the way. Payroll warrant. Can I get a motion for the October 5th payroll warrant of $61,912.70?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and can I get a motion for the October 5th vendor warrant of $91,204.45? Approximately $25,000 of it is for the green communities.
That's the closeout of the grant.
Oh, close out of the grant.
It's the
Excellent.
last work.
It's typically,
For the NES heat pumps that are being installed at the elementary
Oh,
school.
great.
it's a smaller number
Okay.
that we usually see for vendor warrants.
Yeah, for
And that
sure.
money actually will come back to us because that's on grant.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so we're paying it out and then we get
pay it,
reimbursed.
Right.
Okay, even lower amount then. Okay, can I get a motion? Did I get a so moved already?
Motion to approve the vendor warrant for $91,204.45, including green communities.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I have who made the motion and the second on the first?
Heath did and Alex seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, how about minutes? Let's take a look. Okay. The only thing I was going to add was, well, first of all, did anyone have any comments about the minutes?
Not I.
Okay. The only thing I was going to add was under business for the Emergency Services Facility Committee Site and Conceptual Design Recommendations, where we're talking about noise pollution. I wanted to put in another bullet there that indicated that both the EMS chief and the fire chief indicated that they only use the sirens when they have to. It's not a matter of course that they use sirens unless somebody's in the way or there's a dangerous intersection. So if we could add that, that would be great. Okay. Anything else? Nope. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 20th, 22 as amended?
So moved.
And a second.
Second?
Excellent. Bernie, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're done with those. Oh, it's still only 6:08. Okay, moving right along. Meetings and events attended by select board members. Bernie, why don't you start and we'll go around.
Okay, I had a FERCog emergency preparedness committee meeting this afternoon,
Oh,
and
that's interesting.
yeah, they have it quarterly. And there was really nothing much on the agenda.
Okay.
Probably John got more information on it than I did. They ship stuff out to like the fire chiefs and the police chiefs and that. So.
Oh, were they talking about the pagers and that
Well,
Comir's thing?
the planning and the, they have. So, yeah. So, and then we had the two finalist interviews for the grant developer.
Oh, right. You and Alex.
Yes, good interviews, very strong candidates for both of them.
I heard.
Yeah.
I so appreciate you guys doing that whole process.
Yeah, well, you think it's easy, but then when you have like two equally qualified and talented people who can bring two different perspectives to this position,
Yeah.
and just trying to like figure out which one would be best for Northfield can
Yeah.
be kind of complicated. So we were talking for a while to determine who would be a better fit for Northfield. So
It's a nice problem to have.
yes.
Well, that's what we say. It's rather than have two weak candidates, you have two really strong. I mean,
Yeah.
could have flipped a coin almost. It was just a few factors that
Right.
swayed us one way.
That's fantastic.
Just
Anything else?
not for me.
No, that's pretty busy. Okay, Heath.
I had nothing since the last select board meeting.
Really? Look at you.
Been nice.
Okay.
She goes back in her calendar.
I know, and I'm resisting the urge to list veterinary appointments, which is not appropriate. I had historical commission meeting. We haven't had one in a while. And also a stakeholders meeting for the FERC relicensing of First Light. And that's about it.
I just had the hiring. We did a hiring interview for police, where we will elaborate.
Oh, right, I did
on-
that too. Thank you for
Yeah,
reminding
yeah.
me. Yep.
And then the interviews for the grant writer position. So
Excellent. Okay. Andrea, do you want to we've still got a few minutes.
I can start if we have to stop. I can do
Okay.
that. I attended the review committee meeting for the bridge replacement project for the bridge on Burnham Road. That came up a couple years ago when the state was doing its major state capital planning, and we threw that project in because it had been on the tip a long time ago and kind of went nowhere. So they're going to proceed with that project. It was with the project management team hired by DOT, and it's DOT and the engineers. They discussed the conditions found, and then possible solutions to deal with that bridge. It's going to be a full replacement, so the road will ultimately be closed briefly when they do that. They're also looking at how to address the bridge because it's not properly aligned with the channel, and that's why you're getting a lot of scour and bank erosion, so they have to figure out how to realign the bridge and the brook. And it's still probably a good 2 years away on the actual construction because they weren't in full design yet. They were in the project management team, so they had their team out there, their project manager out there. They had engineers involved, but they hadn't designed the whole bridge yet.
Okay.
So it's a couple years out, but it will be a full bridge, pulled out, road will be closed. But we got lots of time to learn about that. We submitted the ADA grant for the hearing loops for the senior center, the library meeting room, and this select board meeting room. The grant allows for installation of equipment to help hearing impaired residents participate in programs or meetings in those particular spaces. Through the use of Bluetooth and or hearing devices on lanyards. It would be a loop in the senior center that's through Bluetooth because they can lay it in the floor. Here that's not really possible. We'd have lanyards so anybody who has any kind of hearing problem or difficulty or profoundly deaf, they would be able to wear these lanyards with the hearing thing, and they would be able to go through our system and they would be able to hear the meeting for either a participant or somebody attending. So that grant went in, $50,000. We hope we'll hear sometime in November. It was I want to give a big shout out to Colleen and some of the residents who worked really, really hard on that. Spelled wrong in my notes. Because they came in and really worked on this, a lot on gathering all the data and putting much of the grant content together. And then Misha, who came through with the grant content for the library, its use of the space, what kinds of meetings you have, all that. So we worked kind of as three. I did the town hall piece and they did their pieces, and I put it all together and submitted it last Friday, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Wow, that's nice.
I sent in quarterly reports for Mass Works and a $380,000 reimbursement request. Closeout report for the Green Communities Grant, and ARPA is the quarterly report due September 30th. Received the signed contract for the $40,000 Shared Streets Grant. Tom is looking at the sidewalk cleaning equipment now. And I asked him, he's working on a sidewalk inventory. He wanted to know what streets we should be doing, and I said, well, let's have that discussion, but let's inventory all the sidewalks first. Condition, width, length, so you can see how much sidewalk there is, whether they're wide enough to be done, whether they're in bad shape and need to be repaired before they can be done. You can't be doing it on sidewalks where you're going to be throwing up chunks of sidewalk. So he's doing a complete sidewalk inventory, so that hopefully when he comes before you in a future meeting, you guys can have a discussion about what actual sidewalks should be included in that process. And
This
how
is
that will work.
I forget what those little machines are called that go up and down the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's a piece of equipment. They usually can do they double as like ditch digging, but they do they have the equipment to plow sidewalks. They have little tractor treads, and they'll have a cabin for the person to sit in, and they will blow and plow snow. So that grant paperwork was signed, and we knew we had it. We just had to wait for the signed paperwork before he could actually spend the money. So now he's looking at that piece of equipment.
Nice.
And
so this idea is coming to fruition this winter.
hopefully he'll have the equipment in time.
Okay, so we definitely have to have him come
We'll have
in
a
and...
discussion on what's that.
When he gets the equipment, if you could let him know, I'd like to come check it out. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, hopefully he'll
Maybe
be
he can do a
you're
demo.
talking about having him come to a future meeting to talk about a
Yeah.
few things, and this would be the perfect.
We're due for an update.
Yeah, I'm trying to schedule a meeting with him because I want to talk about capital planning for town meeting for the town hall and various other things. Now's the time to start getting those quotes.
Okay.
So we'll be
Great.
hopefully having that meeting soon.
Okay.
Just a lightning straight update. The fire alarm system is really the last thing that's being worked on. It's been driving us a little crazy because it beeps a lot, but we've got the key to push it off. But it's been off all today, and we're not quite sure why, but they will be back to finish that up. And I think BNCTV still has a piece of equipment that they're working on a camera, but those are really the last pieces. We actually have received the first check for $13,578.90 to pay for the first 3 invoices that we submitted the first week in September. So that really isn't a bad turnaround if you think about insurance companies.
No.
And so far we've submitted $24,262.28. So that's almost half of what we've or more than half of what we've submitted. And we'll get everything so far, but about $1,000 deductible is what we have. So we'll have to I'll find an insurance account or something to charge that to in the end. But right now, And there's been 3 more submissions since then. But as soon as we got the check, deposited the check, and we're paying the first 3 invoices that it pertains to.
Okay.
The
How much
accountant-
more do you have on your,
2 things.
okay,
The accountant, treasurer, assessor office, our finance team are working on closing out the fiscal year right now. Hopefully we'll be looking at getting free cash certified by the end of this month. And then hopefully the beginning, somewhere in November, you'll be looking to set the tax rate and have your classification hearing.
oh, great.
Waiting to hear from the assessors on when that all works out for them. We're still ironing out some of the past stuff, but it's running smoother every year. So this year ran smoother and each year subsequently. The fiscal year 2021 audit, the finance team and I compiled town responses to the management letter, and I've sent them with a few questions to the auditor. Once he answers those, I think we can quickly finalize the audit piece, and then we can schedule him to come in and talk to you. I've already sent him an email regarding that timeframes to get him to think about that.
And were we thinking that it would make sense to come in for the joint meeting
I
with the
threw that
finance
out
committee?
and thinking, but I said it won't be before like 7 o'clock. Would that time frame be okay?
Okay,
Just so I'd have a sense from him, because it would be a joint finance committee select board meeting, so
Right.
it would be
We
a
have
good time, and I
guests.
wanted to get that time frame of November 15th on his radar screen. Just so hopefully he'll get back my 2 or 3 questions, and then I think everything else will finalize up, and then I can get the audits to you guys to look at ahead of that meeting.
Okay.
all right, great, nice. Chief Hall.
Both of us?
Yes.
Come on up.
Come on up. Would you like to introduce Chad? I know Alex and I met with Chad within the last 2 weeks.
Yep, so this is Chad Sumner. He's our candidate that's gone through the process to this point. This is the last part of the process. Hopefully, we'll square everything away today. So Chad has a lot of experience as a police officer. He's worked in Greenfield. He's going to be a valuable asset, I believe, to our team downstairs, so for the town. So I'm looking forward to working with him and everything he has to offer. He has a great resume. I can't speak highly enough of him, especially when you talk to people that know him. So you come good references. So.
Any questions? Alex, would you like to talk about the hiring committee?
Yeah, well,
Okay, and then I can add, my comments based on
so we had a lot of questions that we asked Mr. Sumner that
2
afternoon.
pages worth, right?
Lots of questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Sumner was able to confidently answer all questions and presented a solid character and background of his experience to us, and which made B and I confident, along with the chief, to recommend him forward to the select board, who are the individuals that will be officially hiring you. So I do have questions. I'd like to wait because I've got a couple of them. I don't know if anybody else would like to
Does
ask any.
anyone who's not on the hiring committee want to ask some questions first?
Sure.
I mean, Alex and I have already sat through, I think it was at least an hour interview, if not
Yeah.
longer.
So Chad, I see your majority of or all of your law enforcement career was spent in Greenfield,
Yes, sir.
for 17 years. So why the change from Greenfield to Northfield, and how do you think you're going to fare with that change from a city to a small town?
The reason for the change is, at this point in my career, I very much enticed by the prospect of a smaller town police department. I've done the mid-tier, big for Franklin County, but still quite small in the grand scheme of things. But I'm really looking forward to the change of pace. The different kind of police working, less about junkies and bar fights and stuff like that, and more about the small town community aspect of it. And I think it's really going to help improve my ability to be home with my family more too, because that's really been the priority between me and my wife lately. She actually just took a new job as well with the same goal in mind, to kind of get our schedule stuff and line up there. So it's not just like high-fiving as we hand the kids off.
Yeah.
See you next week. So yeah, that's why the move, to kind of help reinvigorate my feelings for police work, try the smaller town community-based approach better, and to help the family unit, tighten up even better.
Awesome.
Great. Bernie?
I had just one question. We had mentioned when we were talking about hiring another police officer, but possibly incorporating school resource
Yep.
to it.
Yep. So I think Chad would be a good, it's too early to say, but he'd be a good fit if and when that position comes open.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure
The school knows
that it was
about it.
talked about, that he had an idea and he's not looking at me going, school what?
Yeah.
No, he
No.
expressed interest
Yes.
in pursuing that.
No, I just wanted to make sure it was
Yeah.
brought up.
No, that's
and
a
that
great
we were-
question.
Where
Yeah.
we were looking.
Yep.
Okay, that's my only question. I mean, his resume, speaks for itself,
Yes.
so, as far as I'm concerned, so.
Yeah, thank you for raising that.
It's a good
Yeah.
question.
And we also, and I think it's important to raise it in public as well, Bernie, because Alex and I feel comfortable, and as Alex said, I'm definitely solid on recommending this candidate. But since this is public, we want to make sure that we, kind of ferret out some of the questions and things that we did in the hiring. So thanks for asking that. I think you had talked about when we outlined the steps, we talked about posting the job description, going through the screening committee and the hiring committee, which is our normal personnel process. And then there's another step where it's a lateral transfer application, if I remember correctly. And that would be the next step after that. So there would still be a process that the police department uses for evaluating candidates. And I think the other opportunity is what training is available and making sure we take advantage of that too. Yeah. But I would definitely recommend Chad. I think what came clear both in the interview and also in checking references is the orientation toward community and family. And he gave us a few examples of kids programs, for example, that he would be interested in doing. And I just thought it was a nice fit with Northfield. That's where I landed after all of that. So. Okay. Anything else? Oh, you had two more questions, I think.
Chief Hall, what have you done on your end to ensure that Mr. Sumner is a good fit for Northfield? And had any ride-alongs, conversations, just time to determine that he is the best for your department on your end, not just what we think?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying that this is contingent on a full background check,
Oh, good point.
which has to be completed on him. But I think a lot of the information you get is actually informally, people that know the person, and so based on all that information I've seeked and obtained prematurely, I would say he comes with stellar reviews. Everyone describes him in the same way, so I know that there's consistency there. So I'm confident that he's going to be the person that I would like to have as a patrol officer in the town of Northfield. I would say as far as additional, just when you're around enough police officers, I think talking with him, we've met now, I don't know, 3 or 4 times to get to know him, to get to know his background. I think I got a pretty good feel on who would be a good fit for the position. I think we got really lucky that he applied, and that's where I'm at right now. But I still have to do complete background first to give you any details on anything additionally.
Okay. And Mr. Sumner, obviously the laws for Massachusetts don't change from town to town, but sometimes there can be a change in a police style of what a police chief expects out of his officers. Are you prepared to accept and be able to adapt to any changes that may exist from one chief to another?
Yes, sir. I mean, I've had multiple chiefs in the one department I've been in. So each one comes with their own style, their own thoughts on what is more important, what needs to be enforced heavy, what needs to be lightened up on. So it's never been an issue before, and I think based on talking with Chief Hall, I think what his goal and vision for the department and the town is very much already aligns with kind of like how I feel I want to go about being a police officer this second half of my career.
Okay. I'm all set.
Okay, great.
I have a motion prepared.
Thank you. You have the step in.
Yep.
Okay. And do you have start date as well?
We do.
Oh,
You do have that on there. Okay.
great, thank you, I appreciate that.
At this, you ready?
Yep.
I will make a motion to appoint Mr. Chad Sumner as a full-time Northfield, Massachusetts police officer at grade 7, step 10, with a start date of October 17th, 2022, contingent on a full and successful background check.
Second.
Great, motion and a second.
I just want to make one comment.
Yes.
We do have in there giving him some credit for sick and vacation prior to starts. That is in your letter, even though we did put it in the motion, so it is in there. Because of him joining mid-year and prior commitments he has, obviously, to his family and with his family. We've done this before.
Sick time, vacation, perfectly normal.
Right, if they have a vacation schedule, it's hard to say, oh no, sorry,
you
you're
see
starting
the
a new
letter?
job, that's it, so.
No, I do not. Can I just see the letter?
Yeah, you can absolutely see the letter. So I just wanted to let people know it's in there.
Great.
Because he wouldn't have seen that. It doesn't have to be in your motion,
Yeah,
but
we've never put something like that
in
in
the
a
motion,
motion,
right.
so.
But we did negotiate it with him, we did talk
Well,
about it.
The
That's another,
administrative.
yeah, it's another thing to,
But I wanted to reassure the candidate before you heard the motion that we had followed his
we're
decision.
committed to being an employer of choice and we're committed to the candidate coming on board. Yeah. Is that good?
I'll bring it up. So reading the letter, I think Chad and I had discussed coming in at 80 and 80, just because of COVID. So 80 would be the sick time and 80 would be for the vacation. He has a pre-scheduled vacation, so he wouldn't be enough to accrue enough
Well,
time.
we can talk after.
We can talk after about
That's
that.
me signing that letter, so.
Okay, so I just wanted
we
to
can-
point that out.
We can
Yeah.
talk about it.
Okay.
I don't anticipate there being any issue with something
With
like
80
that
and 80.
being
We'll-
taken care of.
No.
But
Thank you.
that is an administrative end.
We're,
okay.
we're very cognizant and very grateful to get somebody with your amount of experience. And we have talked long, I mean, I've been on the board for 2.5 years, and both Heath and Alex have been on for much longer, and we've talked about the commitment to making Northfield an employer of choice. So we're happy to make that change.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're also very sensitive about family commitments too, so. Okay, all right, so we have a motion.
Second?
Second
Hey,
from,
Heath, did you second it?
you already
Oh, he
seconded
already
it, thank you.
seconded, okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank
Welcome
you, guys.
aboard.
Thank you.
It's official now. All right.
Thanks, Chief.
October
Congratulations.
17th.
Sounds great.
I gotta stick around, but talk after, okay?
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you guys
Excellent.
again.
All right.
Thank
See you
you.
around.
Thanks for choosing Northfield.
Yes, I'm excited. Okay, shall we dive into, thanks for coming. This is like your 4th or 5th update in the last year.
Yeah.
He likes the camera.
Hopefully I can
That's
stay on
it.
track. If there's something at all that, if you're thinking that I don't cover, just let me know. I'm just gonna keep
Yeah,
it
this
pretty
is a
basic.
discussion and an update, and I'm laughing because I think it's a nice problem to have, which is good, open and regular communication with the police chief. So
Yeah.
I think that's really just a joyful statement to be able to make for Northfield. Okay, so next order of business was officer step adjustment. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, it kind of transitions in everything we're talking about with getting an officer like Chad Sumner, which is someone who is all about their family and working in a smaller community. And we're starting to see themes here. And thankfully, the PD I took over actually has officers that I say fit together well. So I feel like I got pretty lucky there. So I'm very appreciative of being able to inherit a police department like that. So adding someone in addition to that is important so that we can all be a good team. But as a part of that, you know, he has a years of service, so he's coming on at step 10, grade 7, step 10. I would like to propose that Oleg Koblinsky is moved from his current step, which is 2.5-ish, which is I think the pay is around $23.75, to step 5, which would be $25.15. The reasons for that is, as Heath has mentioned numerous times about employer of choice, is that Oleg, I hate to say it so bluntly, is kind of underpaid for Yeah, you have a question?
No,
Okay.
please. Actually, what was Oleg's grading
Well,
step?
I
He's
inherited
about-
him
he's about
off
2.5.
step, so we're trying to get him back on step as well.
So grade
There's
7.
a couple people who, for whatever reason, have ended up off step, and we're trying to get them back
Yeah.
on step
Oh.
slowly anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
So
that's
let's just
good.
say he's
He's-
step 2,
He's
between
right
a 2 and a 3.
Okay.
And I'd like to move him to step 5. And I know that there's additional steps that are going to be taken in the near future for consultation, but this really puts our best foot forward in showing that we're looking out for our employees and our police officers to give them the right pay. So the reason why there's a lot of reasons for it, and even just comparing to how other towns pay their people, that's good enough of a reason for me. But for Oleg in particular, is that from a chief's point of view, he's dependable. I can always depend on him whenever I need to call him. He doesn't need to pick up his phone. His character in that area is high. I'd also say with the town, he has a great reputation. I get compliments about Oleg probably once or twice a week. I don't exaggerate, but it's very regular. Like where people, little things that people wouldn't know about, the little things that he does, like changing a tire or maybe pulling someone over that has a suspended license, but instead of towing their car, making sure that they have a licensed driver that's nearby and things of that nature, which people really appreciate because we don't want to criminalize people that really aren't criminals in the first place. So I've had many people, because of the way that Oleg's been doing his job, give him compliments. As an employer of choice type of thing is that now that he has the Bridge Academy, he's full-time certified, so he has a lot more options than he's had in the past. And so, not that we're doing this to make sure we keep them, but why not? Why not make sure that the people feel like they're getting paid fairly and they're not thinking to themselves, well, maybe I can go next door or somewhere else to get slightly more pay.
Well, retention is a goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Well,
And usually
It's not just recruitment.
We
It's
have
cheaper
often-
to retain people than it is to recruit them.
And we have
Yeah.
often looked at adjusting people's pay when they change some certifications. We've done it with highway,
Yeah.
if they retain the CDLs, we've done it with, so the fact that he's now actually technically full-time academy certified is a
That's
reason to
important.
consider, and I have to say, I look across the board, I see everybody's pay, and I don't like to compare between people so much, but you have to somewhat be consistent where people's levels and trainings are, and I don't think it's a bad thing to say, we're starting in our paramedics at 25, which is to keep them on, I mean, that's a going wage, probably even low for paramedic, and yet we're paying an officer $2 an hour less than that, who we've had for years and who is now full-time certified. It
And
seems to me we have to at least bring him up to parity.
So what
It's
is-
grade
He's been
7.
here at least 4 years because I've been gone 4 years. So.
He's gone from a 1, so he's been here, he would probably be due, I think he's due for his next step next year anyway. He'd move to at least a 3, and I give him the COLA. I can't penalize him because he's somehow off step, so he would end up at like a 3.5 anyway, because I give him the full COLA step percentage, because I don't want to
Yeah.
cheap him back. I don't want to, So that's why he's still slightly off step, even though he went from a 1 to a 2. He was slightly off a 1. I don't know why he was appointed above a step 1 rate, but he was, and
We're
I
talking
kept
about step
consistent
7?
with that. So he would
Grades.
go up anyway in July.
Aside from any certifications that he has he anticipated completion of any college at some point?
Yeah, that's a great question. He is. I'd have to ask him, but he's constantly working on his college degree.
I know we don't
what
have
level
like
he's
a
at.
college requirement for Northfield. We don't do that here, but I do like to see somebody who is invested in the criminal justice system to seek further education in it.
Yeah, I would say from what I know about him personally, he takes education very serious, especially considering that everything he's gone through coming over here from Moldova and learning the learning curve there. So he's done really well.
Well, the bridge, he went through the bridge, right?
Yep,
So that's
went through the bridge.
part-time, right? So he has to,
The bridge made part-time go to full-time, so he's now full-time certified.
right, I know that, but in terms of like studying and getting through the certification, that takes a fair amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Already, so,
Yes.
yeah, so
Several
now that
weeks.
that's out of the way,
Several weeks.
then other education and training opportunities
Yeah.
kind of open up once you get that out of the
Yeah.
way. Because
And that kind of
that's
roll-
a major time
Yeah.
commitment, I would think.
And that kind of rolls into my last points here, which is that when you have officers that aren't making so much money, a lot of times how they make their money is working road details. But when I took this position, I said I was going to look a lot into how officers, not just were at work, but how they're doing off work, so their health and their career longevity is dictated by things of that nature.
Great.
So that's why I'm looking at things like our on-call and just hours that officers work and making sure they're not working too many hours and they're giving themselves a break. So I think at having officers, especially Oleg's probably mid-20s, they're also going to hopefully move into that transition where, you know, Sergeant Boroskov also has his own family, and then Oleg, I'm guessing, will eventually end up that road. So they understand that working road details is not the end all. Like, you can make a living at Northfield PD by working your regular patrol shifts, and there's something to be said for that. That's important, and that's why it's important to get them up to the right pay scale, so they're getting compensated.
I absolutely agree with you in that statement. But I sign exactly what Oleg and what Alex makes, and what they make in details. It's amazing how much money that they make. So I know, you know, $50,000 is a living in Franklin County, but you know, when I'm signing $3,000 for a check for some of these cops, I mean, they're working a lot, and if they eventually have to transition their life when they have a family where they aren't able to do the 60, 70 hour work weeks. I just hope that we are giving them enough right now to where they're going to want to stay in Northfield. Because the details are what does it for some officers, and I just want to make sure that they know that there is more to this job than just working details, and that there is an expectation that, you know, you are going to stay in this town for other reasons, other than just waving your hand in the middle of the road and conducting traffic, whatever they do. So,
Well, it sounds like you two are saying similar things in that you're talking about having, well, one, I appreciate that you're looking holistically at what employees are doing so they're not burning themselves out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also thinking about, okay, what you do earlier on in your career is different. Just based on our interview with Chad, what you do early on in your career is different than what you do later in your career when you have a family. And so I think those points are all well taken. Can you just clarify though, again, on the, we're going from like 2.5 to 5, and it's step 7?
Grade 7, step 5.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yep.
Grade is down the side and step is across.
Okay, so that's more, okay, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we're looking at the right figure here. I wasn't.
To Alex's point, also when overtime details are offered, that I think when you have a choice between working a road detail and working things that we need overtime for, it's great when officers can make that choice over maybe the road detail. And so that's why the pay is also important. And what goes into that is, for instance, was my last point on here, is that we're transitioning to from our old evidence officer that was a part-time officer to now Oleg's going to take over evidence, and we have we have to revamp the entire evidence. So it's going to be quite the feat. We've already been working on it. I have a personal friend that knows quite a bit about evidence that's been consulting and helping out. But that being said, Oleg's got the right personality and the right work ethic and demeanor to take on a role like that. So those are the additional things that someone like that can do. And also, if I need him to do that on overtime, and I know that he'll step up and do it anyways, but it's good that to know sometimes when someone's working overtime that they're not giving up a road job where they can make X amount of money, way more than doing the shift overtime, as we call it.
You know, all I'm just trying to say is that I hope that officers like Oleg want to work in Northfield because they like police work and not because they like road details. Because they like road detailers more than just go to New Hampshire and be a flagman. You know, if that's what you like about policing, because there's a lot more to policing than just, you know, doing the road details. So I just want to know that if we're going to be doing this where we believe in the whole employer of choice thing and giving him a better grade in step, that he's doing it, that we're doing this because we believe that Oleg likes police work.
Exactly.
He wants to stay in this town for police work.
Good point. Thank you for clarifying.
So,
I think do you think based on Alex, given the certification and the movement into handling evidence, and based on the comments about his performance, it seems like Oleg is exactly that kind of
Oh
candidate.
yeah, I'd say at this point
Yeah.
he's definitely invested in the
Okay.
town, but he's not every officer.
Gotcha.
So there's going to be other officers who aren't going to be like that, who
Yep.
just want to do policing because they have the ability to
Yeah.
double their pay. And some of them easily do.
Yeah.
Easily you can double your pay with details.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was responding to was you have great candidates, and because of the pay scale, they have to take detail in order to make money, right? Especially to start saving, and if you have a family or you're about to have a family or something like that, I can see where it kind of puts the candidate in a, to your point about looking at people holistically, it can put them in a situation where they're spending way too many hours because that's the only way that they can make money if we're not paying attention to a pay scale.
Well, I think
Yeah.
one of the points you're making is that even when he needs work done overtime, when he needs that, if their overtime isn't even, if their overtime wage, which could be 2 times their wage, isn't the same as 1 hour of a detail rate,
Yeah.
they're gonna choose the detail rate
Right.
over the overtime, which
Right.
hurts him.
It makes you feel not so appreciated.
Right, you gotta
Right.
work overtime to get less rate than you could get if you did a detail.
So-
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
trying to bring that up so that even if you have to ask them to do some
Yeah.
overtime, that at least they choose to do that because they'd rather do that than take an hour of detail time.
A lot of times how I make decisions is I put myself in the person's shoes. So I'm not specifically talking about Oleg or any
Right.
certain person, but I put themselves in myself in their shoes. And again, I can't really realistically do that because their motivations and their goals are probably completely different than mine. But if I were to put myself in their shoes in this instance, I know that there's been times in my career where I felt like if I were to work a couple road jobs, I wouldn't have to do all the extra stuff that I was doing at the PD, which was more of like being out of your, just being kind to your supervisors and wanting to be there for them. Whereas I feel like that was never the right dynamic. You should be compensated fairly, so you don't always have to work road jobs. But as a police officer that hated working road jobs, sometimes it was something that I needed to do for my family. So if I didn't have enough money, or I bought a new car, or something went wrong with the car, or whatever was happening, one of the resources is work road jobs. So, but I get your point. You don't want officers to burn themselves out, but there's only so much you could do as far as managing how people spend their off time hours. So that's something I can't control, but I could give them the incentive to let's concentrate on the shift in our community in a healthy way, and maybe not work so many road jobs so you're not so tired all the time, and you can concentrate on things like education and your family and things of that nature.
Okay.
So here's the question for you
Okay.
then, Mr. Hall. Do you think that Oleg is the officer that is invested in Northfield to where this is justified?
Yes.
Okay, then that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is because of Officer Kobylinski and the things that I've observed over the last 10 months going on a year is that why I'm making this recommendation.
Yeah.
So
Well, my sense since working with you is that you wouldn't be putting forth a candidate that you didn't feel strongly about. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like you're not going to take the time to come and talk at a public meeting about an employee that you don't think is invested in Northfield and you're not invested in.
I have no
Yeah.
incentive to do it other than I'm trying to bring the PD up to what I envision to be the correct structure of the PD, which encompasses a lot of variables, but one of those is correct pay and making sure that we have the exact quote is what's the one that you always hear employer of choice, that we're doing that, and that really falls a lot on me to be able to convey that to you, to understand what the pay level should be to be an employer of choice, and get people that and keep people that are being good police officers. To Alex's point, is Oleg one of those people? Absolutely is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if anything, like I think we all noticed that Oleg is very proactive, and so I'd like to have him get more involved in some of the community events that we have going on. Oleg has a lot of room for growth, and I appreciate his dedication, his commitment to this job.
And I've seen a lot of growth in the young man since I've been on this board.
Yep.
So
Good. It's good to hear.
Okay.
I
Do
have.
we have a motion?
So
you have a
this will be
motion?
considered a reclassification or a restep.
It would be a step adjustment.
Step adjustment. Okay. Motion to approve step adjustment for Officer Oleg Kobolowski to grade 7, step 5, effective immediately.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Good. Congratulations to Oleg,
Yeah, good for Oleg.
especially on the certification.
Really good, yeah.
Please,
Excellent.
please extend our congratulations on that.
Yep.
They have to go out to eastern part of the state to do any of those trainings?
I think the furthest they went was maybe an hour and a half away, so I don't think they went all the way out east. Do you want to move on to my next thing?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
This is in the same line of what I'm saying, but maybe a curveball because no one probably saw it coming. But since we're talking about money, part-timers make $19.69 an hour. I think we should consider moving that up. So I have 22 listed, but that to me is fair compared to what Andrea did a great job of listing, comparing different jobs around Northfield, but I'm not looking to do anything like that.
I
That's how you step on
just
people's
try to
toes
look
and
at
offend
parity
people.
to some extent.
Yeah.
And both of those are heavily trained jobs
Yeah.
between EMS and
Yeah.
a police officer. To be a full-time police officer, the amount of training and certifications you have and you have to keep up are a lot. Same with an EMT or a paramedic. The amount of certifications and trainings you have to are a lot. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason that they make more pay than, for example, than maybe some other positions. Because not everybody reaches and attains those levels. They're hard to do, and they're constant trainings, and they're constant certifications. So that's what goes into the cost of many of those positions. And so
Yeah.
I'm not putting them, saying one's better or more difficult than the other,
Yeah.
but when you look at them in terms of parity of the amount of time of training and such, it would make sense that they're somewhat comparable in terms of wages.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. It's that low, to be honest. I mean, I didn't realize it was that low. That's it's
Right.
5 years ago. I was making several dollars an hour more in the next town down as a part-time officer. So it's as
I think in
desperately
McDonald's you can get up to $20 an hour.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
So is there a proposal, just from a business standpoint, is there a proposal and do we know what the impact on the budget is? Because we always get asked at FinCom if making sure and double checking on budget line
I told him
items.
to run his numbers. We know.
So I know you guys have been on it, but I'm just going to say that for the public meeting that I know you guys have been doing your homework, but because it does come up with FinCom.
Well,
So
we've certainly run the numbers on the positions tonight that you've talked about. I
Yeah.
have not. I can't say that I've run the numbers on the part-timers, but you
yeah.
be the one to have to look at how many hours you have there already and how many you're planning to use in that number, because I didn't really have a number for that.
Yeah.
We've got a number in mind, but I definitely knew that we ran the numbers
Yeah.
for the police positions that we wouldn't obviously
Right.
Yeah.
advocated for.
so do you have a proposal for the part-timers?
I do. I have $22 an hour. That number was based on. It's tougher to do than the Officer Kobolinski one because that's how much a full-time officer should be getting, especially an officer that's doing as good a job as he's doing that we want to keep and maintain.
Mm-hmm.
I have to apply that same standard to each part-timer, but each part-timer is different that works at Northfield. But the pay should be $22 an hour. I wouldn't say less than that for part-time officers that work in the town that are very independent. So when they're working, they are the person that
They're the only
the
one
community relies
Yeah.
on to handle the job correctly.
Right.
And this job does have a lot of dangers, and it's way more complicated than it used to be. I bet when that 1969 variable came in, it wasn't nearly as complicated as it is right now. The rise in mental health issues and other issues such as that has gone through the roof, and they really risk a lot every day coming in, not just their safety, but just the things, how complicated the job is and the stress and anxiety that come from that. So I think that's a fair pay for officers that the community really needs to do.
And that's not a great. That's not great.
No, that's
I was
not
just
a
gonna say
position
it's
that-
not a-
Traditionally, the part-time officers and your firefighters are not on a grading step chart.
Okay.
Because they're not considered they're not considered a staff employee in the full-time sense that you're hiring them on.
Right, that we're working off of that
Right, so,
schedule.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can do that, but you don't have to.
And to go back to running the numbers are, I did look at all this before
Yeah.
the meeting, but
Yeah.
the numbers really are virtually impossible to predict because they've been based on when officers leave and filling the spot. So a lot of times part-time officers are being utilized for when a full-time officer's out. And so that really depends on the circumstances that are going on that time of year. So Like last year, for instance.
Oh, right. And we haven't had a full-time day officer in position for a little over a quarter now because of
Yeah.
this fiscal year. So we already have that money on that line item.
That's it. So,
Yeah.
So with
Okay.
Chief Layton being out until I was hired,
Right.
that throws off the numbers. And then who's filling that position? That's a part-time officer.
Okay.
You know, making less than $20 an hour. And then when I came on, it's been up and down depending on the week on how much I had to rely on part-time officers to fill positions.
Yeah.
And there is, when we do the budget, and I've given him the sheet that I do for police, because he really came on board not knowing what, he needed to go through the whole spring to get a sense, and budget was already established by like March, so it was
Yeah.
very hard for him to know. But now, I think this budget season, we can have a much better discussion, because there's some real assumptions you make about the number of hours for part-time officers. And now he'll have a much clearer sense on what his schedule looks like, and what he's, especially now that he has that officer, the other officer who's just potentially a full-time SRO or part-time SRO. There'll be some hours in it. So he'll have a much better
Yep.
sense on when we go to do the budget this year,
Yep.
on what those numbers should look like. Because we make an assessment on, are they backfilling for full-timers vacation? Are they backfilling for full-timers training? So we have to throw numbers in for part-timers to cover shifts. And there's a lot of assumptions that go into that, because we can't know exactly how many hours you're going to need for part-timers. What if somebody gets hurt who's a full-timer? Now you're going to have the part-timer in more. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into it, and I think this
Okay.
year we'll have a much better shot at putting together those numbers.
Okay. What does the rest of the board think? Keith?
I think this is long overdue, and to be
Right.
honest, I don't think it's even enough with the proposed amount, but
It's a start.
We do have thank you for saying that, and we do have a consultant coming in, and so that's why I wanted to make sure this happened now, and then in addition to that, having someone that's not the police chief, that is perhaps unbiased to some degree, also give an opinion on where everyone should be at.
my only concern would be, I know it's hard to predict, like you said, with your hours, but given what your schedule hours are and what your scheduled part-time coverage would be, basing that on what this would increase that potential budget amount right there, you're confident that you'd have enough that you wouldn't exceed a budget?
Well within the budget.
Awesome, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That was my question, is
Okay.
can we do this with the current
Financially,
budget?
yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my only question, really.
Yeah, I think we could actually do a lot more, but that's a conversation in the future that I'm
For
gonna
another
have.
day.
We're actually working on, well, we've had a few meetings, it seems like. So I think this is a good time to take care of that piece. And then we've got a couple of months before the budget part starts, and then we can do some more homework in the intervening time, because we're going to have to take a look at numbers again anyway going into the budget cycle. So how many, and you still have a really deep experienced bench, if you will, to use a sports metaphor, for your part-timers. Are we still looking at some folks who've been with us a long time?
Yep.
Unlike a lot of other departments?
The ones that I've come to depend on and count on, it's been great. I mean,
Okay.
it would be, I mean, there are some things on the backside that I'm not really going to talk about in a public type of setting, but people do have some things that they want to do in the future. So I don't know how long we'll have the amount of people that we have.
Okay.
But that's to be expected with the Bridge Academy and everything going on. We
Right.
kind of saw this coming. That's why I'm kind of making the effort to kind of move towards
Okay.
full-timers, and that's why we have Chad Sumner starting. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the direction we're going in. But over time, like we've discussed over the last few months, there's no way to predict it, but you would think that the pool of part-timers will eventually go down to minimal, because you're really going to only rely on
Right.
people that didn't want to be a full-time officer anymore, or they retired and they still want to work.
Right, well, and the years are progressing too,
I
but,
think people need to understand that what the new police reform bill has done is essentially there is no such thing as a part-time
Right.
officer anymore. It's basically, ultimately, everyone has to be full-time certified to some extent and continue those trainings to stay as a full-time officer.
Yeah.
It's not just a one and done.
right,
And to ask someone to do that part-time, that's a lot. Now, some people might choose to do it, might just choose to do it anyway as a second job. They might do it because they are retired, but they're still young enough and still want to be But that number is gonna, as he says, get smaller and smaller and smaller. And
To that point,
Okay.
we've gone through A through H, and I forget the next one, it's H through, maybe R, I forget, it's one of those, and then it'll be the last group, it's over a
Okay.
few year cycle, but there'll be people that I'm anticipating that don't wanna go through the whole Bridge Academy. 'cause
Okay.
it's not worthwhile for them at
Okay,
this
so
point in their
this
life.
is not a long-term,
Right,
as
and
we've
then
talked
they-
about before, it's not a long-term
Right, they
strategy
won't be able
unless
to
they,
serve as officers anymore once
Okay.
they
Yep.
get through that process.
And that's the part where it's like, I don't wanna
Yep.
guess what people are gonna do or don't do.
Right.
But I could see myself in their shoes, like,
well, we want
Do I
to take
wanna go to
advantage
Bridge?
of the experience that we have now and
Yep.
want to and pay them a decent wage in comparison to other towns. So, Alex, do you
Yeah.
have a,
Just some good selectman insight select member insight, to be correct. Northfield has to stay fiscally and professionally competitive in 21st century
Yeah,
America
that
in a
balance.
fast-moving society that we're in. And we also have to do that while being mindful of the taxpayer dollars.
yep,
So that's all I really wanted to say. There's a lot of towns in this county, being the smallest county in the state, and that where you can make more money going elsewhere. You can make more money going to Greenfield. You can make more money going to a bigger area that's non-civil service, and that option is available to officers. So in acknowledging this conversation tonight and for us to have this discussion, I just hope that we're all aware that we have to do the best we can with what we fiscally are allowed to do to keep Northfield professionally competitive and financially competitive in this job market, which is getting harder to do in battling the private sector and other bigger entities. So,
good point.
yeah.
Well, that's
I
why we're
tot-
having these discussions, right? I think we've had more discussions about police matters and police policies.
Yeah.
I know I've learned a ton over the last year and a half. So before you came on board, we all just had to get up to speed in order to even hire a new police.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these guys were already up to speed, but the rest of us had to get up to speed in order to even hire a new police chief. So I appreciate that we're having these discussions and we're staying abreast of, speaking of priorities, one of our priorities has been personnel and salary and paying people a good wage to retain them. So is there a motion in here that we think that we can do to this effect, that because we don't have to do it according to the grade and steps, so can we just do
22 an hour, what was it?
what was
That
the,
was my proposal.
22.
He
What
said
do
it might be less.
You like 22, Heath?
what do you think?
I think it should be more, to be honest, but I say 2250.
22.50.
Thank you, Heath.
Okay,
And the budget will be fine with that?
Yes. And we're
Easily?
well within the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're trying to just be fiscally responsible with all these other things coming up.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
Got a lot of.
We're not to the point where I'm asking for anything that's gonna change our.
Oh, I didn't
what-
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be to that point at some point, because I also, everything that he said is, I take very serious, and I totally understand that, but I also am looking at being a community member myself, I have my family here. I think people go to work and they raise their families and they do stuff, but there is the quality of your police department and the quality of your police officers and what you can expect from them. That also kind of ties into what the pay is, and so it's kind of my job to make sure that all mends together as well.
yeah.
And I'll say this, that I've worked with the majority of these folks that are on the department now, and having worked in this county for 17 years as a cop, I'd say this is probably one of the best crews of people, knowledge-wise, professionalism-wise. I mean, there's a lot of problems with part-time officers. There's a lot of times
Yeah.
I cringed at the stuff that I saw and
In other
reports that I
communities,
read.
yeah.
And this group that I don't think I've solidly seen so many people in one group that were just like, each one of them is just a strong player. So I mean, I think this is far beyond justified and overdue. So I would just add to that. 351 municipalities are in this little state here, and a lot of them have departments that are, I'm sorry to say, are a complete disaster. They have 15, 20-year-old cruisers, like late 90s Crown Vics. Some of these departments are still running. Outdated equipment, outdated training protocols, just all sort. I'm just glad to see that Northfield, we're keeping up with the equipment. We're replacing cruisers.
Mhm.
We're staying up on training. We're addressing payroll. We're addressing training. All these things. So all good points to make right there.
We're heading in a good direction. I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at the emergency management building. I mean, this is
Yeah,
think we're
that's
headed in
the
a good
last
place.
piece, really. Okay, so shall we entertain a motion to, I'm not quite sure how to word it.
I can make a motion.
Okay, great.
I would like to make a motion to increase the part-time officer wage from $19 an hour to $22.50 an hour.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing
Good
none.
motion, long overdue.
We're very excited about it. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Busy night.
I had some other notes, but I think we kind of covered it amongst our conversations, unless anyone has any additional questions for me.
Anything else about planning? I mean, we have some discussions going on that will come out, and we're actually planning a meeting in November with the Finance Committee and the School Committee
Good.
in November. So in looking at the direction of the police department and additional staff needs, I'm not sure at what next meeting we're going to tackle that, but I know that Andre and I are committed to working with you to bring, because there's more that you're looking at that you're going to want to discuss with the select board.
Yeah, are you referring to like the school resource officer?
Well, that as well as, really just, I think directionally looking, just to step off of the fiscal year track for a moment, directionally looking at what you just said about part-time officers and the nature of the training and also where people are probably at in their lives, that piece of what we're really, really used to and rely on in Northfield may dissipate, is probably likely going to dissipate as a result of the police reform, right? So that means you're looking down the road, even if it's just a couple of years or 3 years or something like that, that we're going to need to, I want to keep that fresh. I think we're at the point with the select board, because we've done so much work, that we can look proactively and not just at this fiscal year and these particular positions that we just spoke about. I think with the SRO, I think that's something that we're still trying to move along. We're on different schedules, obviously, so that's, I think that bears a note to the select board.
I've just had Chap Sumner hired, so I don't want to sound unappreciative for that, but I think the direction of the PD, from trying to have a PD that has the proper structure and people have their jobs that they can do and be expected to do and not be spread thin. I think eventually, depending on what the school does, obviously the safety in the school is a priority to everyone in this room, and school resource officer is a part of that piece of that puzzle, but really the ball's in their court as far as whether they want a school resource officer, whether it's full or part-time. And so that change, that makes it tough to predict what can happen in the future. But if someone like Officer Sumner ends up in the school, then we're going to be back to square one, which is, not to make this about me, but I am spread pretty thin. And I think the structure of a PD should have a supervisor that's actually being a supervisor in the town and overseeing things, as opposed to being the person that does each thing that comes in. I think just in general within...
You mean everything during the day?
Everything during the day. just
Having been in a meeting with you where there's multiple things going on at the same time? Yeah.
And again, it can be done, but it's like, what does the community want from their police department?
Right.
They really want a structure where they know that it's the correct one. So we are missing a piece of the puzzle, which would be having another officer, if Officer Sumner ends up in the school, to be able to do some of the investigations that are what our residents would want to have an officer have the skills and the ability and the training and just their personality to deal with those type of investigations. These things happen, these type of crimes and investigations happen, I think, more than people realize in a town. And I've gotten the feel, the appetite from the select board and the community is that we don't always want to just rely on the state police to do the investigations. We'd like to have a Northfield officer doing them, but again, the experience comes with that. So how many investigations has an officer done pertaining to these type of investigations? Now, am I going to do all those investigations? If so, then all the things on my list about restructuring the payroll, doing the evidence downstairs, doing the records, the policy and procedures, the rules and regulations, the field training program, the background investigation, the school, all those things end up taking a sidebar for a little bit.
Yeah.
To stay on track.
Like they have
So many hours in a
historically.
day.
Well, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
right.
so and I think I understand people that are like, oh, you can make that all happen, but I think to make that happen it's just not gonna. It's not efficient. It's not the way to run a police department. So I like to get
Not a way to ensure your chief isn't getting burned out either. So
Yeah. So not to make it about me, but and it goes for the various roles and within the department, because then you're asking people to do more and more and do stuff that they maybe not up. You haven't built them up yet. It's like we're just kind of throwing people. It's like, oh, this came in, even though you have zero experience at it, but I don't want to do it because I got this all going on. So I'll just throw you to that difficult case to investigate. And most importantly, not only is that not the right way to learn, it's also not fair to the community member that has a police officer that hasn't had the right training or experience or education to that level to be doing that kind of investigation.
Right.
And those are like maybe sex offenses or crimes against children, but even like more specialized things like maybe some more serious domestic violence or serious cases that we investigate that do come in. So, yeah. So I think that's the my vision of the PD in the future.
Okay, well that's what I wanted to get out, is because it's not just about pulling over cars, right?
Absolutely.
And Northfield, actually Chad mentioned this in his interview, was he was saying, and it was to your question, because we asked a similar question in the hiring, was that what do you think about going from a larger town to a smaller town? And he talked about, well, all towns have the same issues. It's just a question of frequency and number. So, and then I had a discussion with you because I just wasn't, I just was thinking, and I think a lot of people think, okay, everything's great in Northfield, there's no problems. But one of the things I've learned from spending more time with the police officers is there's things going on behind closed doors that neighbors and the casual person or citizen in Northfield isn't going to know. The police officers are going to know that. And so there are some cases that come up that are quite serious, and I think given a choice between tackling a case and doing policy and procedures, obviously the case is urgent, right? And you can't, it's not like you time those and go, oh, I'll be done with the policies and procedures by the time this case comes up, right? That's not the way it works. To me, that would be if somebody was in danger or there was domestic violence, that needs to be responded to and investigated.
There's also a lack of checks and balances there for a larger agency, like the one I came from, or perhaps Greenfield. You have an officer that goes to initial call, they determine that a detective's needed, a detective comes in, and then they write the report, they do the investigation, but they're overseen by a sergeant, the officer is overseen by a sergeant, and then that sergeant's overseen by a detective, and then there's a deputy chief and a chief. There's layers to it. At a town like Northfield, basically, if I do the investigation, there's no checks and balances, there's no one to double check my work to make sure I did my investigation correctly. And I do make mistakes, and there are the frequency of these investigations also matter. So to keep up on your skills and your tactics for doing these type of investigations. So I think that's the area where we want to go with. I think that's what Northfield, if they knew all of everything going on, they would all agree that we need a police department that functions that way.
Okay, so
that's not to disparage the police department.
No. We're just taking a realistic look, and we're looking at more detail now that you've been on board for a while. Yeah. And also, I just think I don't think there's an action that we need to take on that so much as just be aware that this is going to be an ongoing discussion with you, and we'll be talking more about staffing and next steps. Yeah. And coming back to the full board again. I just want to make
Yep.
the public aware that these are the kinds of discussions that we're having, and it's not all just about responding to to an urgent topic on the agenda. It's about planning and looking ahead and figuring out where do we all want to go proactively, right? And that this is important. And I think for me, I pride myself on doing my homework and really looking at things. But the couple of conversations I've had with you, I just realized there's a lot more complexity in police work in Northfield than I realized. And I think we had a great foundation set up from before, but I'm becoming more and more aware of it. And as the select board, we're responsible for hiring everyone in the town. And I think we need to just continue doing what we're doing, which is looking at salary, looking at personnel issues, doing some proactive planning. And we spent a lot of time over the last year and a half doing policies and procedures just to get, on the personnel side, just to get our processes and procedures set up. So now we've got that out of the way. Now we're on to bigger and better, meatier topics that we can look down the road at least a couple of years, right? So I think that's really what we're trying to do here tonight on this particular topic. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Because we're so used to, like, we get to the end of discussion, then we do a motion, it's like, but there's no real motion on this other than to come back to it.
Yeah. And about the, just you made me think about it, the little things like the traffic enforcement, no one's saying that stuff's not important either.
Right.
But if we're doing...
It's not the complete job.
That's not. If we're looking at how well we're doing and how much of the circle we're filling in, it's like that. We're doing a good job in those areas.
Yeah.
But we need to kind of work on making sure we have the right person in doing some of the larger investigations.
Right.
And that's going to be a focus of mine in the future.
Right.
It's just something that I've been a detective in the past. I've overseen this type of thing, and I know exactly. I just know what the community would want if they knew exactly what was going on within a PD, and they'd say, we're lacking a little bit in that area.
Right.
And it's like, I want to make sure that we have that area filled so that everyone can say, hey, our money or taxpayer money is going towards a product that is complete and not deficient in any way.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to move on to, so we'll come back to that. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying we'll come back to it. I think it's a great discussion, and I appreciate your time and energy in preparing for this meeting. The traffic and speeding concerns, speaking of enforcement and what we normally expect to be talking about in Northfield, Alex had brought up some concerns, and I think we come back to this periodically because everybody notices speeders, and so we just want to touch in on this topic. Alex, do you want to provide a context or a question or a comment?
So I was reached out to by an individual. He gave me a call, Tom Wyman. We'll put that on the record as a concerned citizen who resides on Old Wendell Road, the lower Old Wendell, and about some speeding concerns that are happening on Old Wendell, and what we can do as a municipality, and on East Street as well. This has been an ongoing issue for years with the side road speeding that exists in our municipality. And what we can do between the police department and the select board to craft some type of policy and language that we can have a universal speed limit throughout the town, similar to what Greenfield has done successfully, though not needed on every street, 25 mile per hour zone. I think something like this in Northfield, though, would be a lot more justifiable so that it's done across the board. And if Greenfield can do it and if other towns can do it, I'm tired of being told it can't be done in Northfield, which has happened in the past. I'm aware that there is a long and lengthy process in regards to getting this done on certain streets to the point where it's not even worth it, from how Andre explained it to me, and I respect that, I understand it. But maybe that process isn't the same as if we do this, we just get the whole town taken care of. So we're taking care of East Street, we're taking care of 142, maybe not 142, but we're taking care of Old Wendell, we're taking care of all these little tinier roads, Highland as well, Winchester, where we're having a problem with speeding. A lot of times it's unmarked, and it goes from person to person on how this unmarked speed limit thing is to be interpreted. And not everybody knows the law, and I'm not an expert on the law either, on Chapter 90. But I thought this would be a good time to addressed the fact that there is a speeding issue on Old Wendell. I think Heath could definitely agree with me on that, who lives on Old Wendell Road, that this is definitely something we have to address. So I figured since Chief Hall is here, we could share those concerns and come up with some type of a plan in the form of policy at some point to take care of this.
Well, I think it's a great topic. Two, what I'd be curious about is what the police perspective is on speeding. And I think it's speeding plus, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, just based on other folks that I've talked to on East Street, it's the, trucks when they get steered in the wrong direction. I think they use East Street to kind of loop around and get themselves out of that situation. So that periodically comes up. I'm guessing that, like most problems, 80% of the problems happen on 20% or so, or even a lesser percentage. And those are marked. A lot of them are marked.
What did you mean? Just want to
I mean,
clarify.
like speeding.
20% of what?
Roads,
Oh.
just in general, like an 80-20 problem, where if you looked at all of your data,
Yeah.
do most of the problems happen on like a half a dozen streets?
Yeah.
Or fewer than 10, for example, streets, where we might have plenty of roads, and we're one of the biggest landmass communities in Franklin County. So we've got a lot of roads that we cover, a lot of territory. That was made clear to me by a police officer who used to be in Northfield. So I guess the question is, what's your perspective on speeding and enforcement and changing posted, dealing with unposted,
Yeah.
et cetera? I just want to get your perspective on it before we get down into the weeds.
Probably not going to be popular, but I just got to be honest. So, Tom, for instance, I know there's speeding problems on the roads, but it's not an egregious speeding problem in town, in my opinion, except for Gulf Road. That's just a huge problem, people speeding. But at the same time, I think most people that drive through there go about 45, 50. About 10% of the cars actually go 35, and when someone goes 35, the other person's like right on them, super irritated. So I'm not sure that's the best speed limit on it. But I'm not saying that to tell those people that we don't have a speeding problem. Every community has this type of
Right.
speeding problem, is what I'm
Right.
saying. And the signage, I totally 100% agree with Alex. It's my same assessment that the town should go down to 25 miles per hour, except for the streets that you determine should be higher than that, because there's not many streets that should be higher than that. And those streets should be marked anyways. So we have a severe lackage in speed signs or signage in general. I think it wouldn't be that hard for me if someone wants me to do it, to drive around and actually tell everyone where the speed limit signs are and what they should be, like Caldwell Road's an example. We've gotten, you mentioned a few streets, but there's Old Wendell Road, there's East Street, there's Ashewett, there's Old Vernon, there's Caldwell Road, Burnham, Winchester. So there's a number of complaints that we get about speeders.
Main Street?
Main Street, but it's funny when you work Main Street, other than the crosswalk thing, not a lot of people are going more than 10 miles an hour over. Your speeders on Main Street are usually about 45. You don't get a lot that are going more than 45 miles an hour.
They're up at my end.
Yeah, but
Just talking as a
Yeah.
citizen on Main
They
Street
come in from
or New
pretty
Hampshire.
fast.
It's
But for
bad,
people
yeah.
that
and they
live on
slow
these
down.
streets who see and observe people going, it's like you won't. If you're on your street and you're walking your dog and someone goes by at 55 miles an hour, it's obviously going to really bother you. Then it happens multiple days a week, and then you're like, we have a severe speeding problem. But then we go out there and we sit there and we don't actually catch anyone. We sit out there for an hour, at a time. And that's why I always try to have residents give me a break time on the time period, like, I don't know, Ashewett Road, where they gave me a time period, then we can actually catch the people
Oh,
that they
great,
had
okay.
in mind to get it. But again, that could be a solution on Old Wendell Road on the bottom, which Tom's complaining about, would be to pinpoint who these people are, because it's a small road. it's got to be. It's not really through traffic so much, so it has to be.
Isn't it a dead end? I
Yeah.
mean,
Both
don't-
sides are, yeah.
Yeah, so there
So
has
it's
to be
local-
residents.
Has to be local traffic.
Yeah, it has to be.
I mean, there is a
Someone's
road
got
to
to-
get onto, like, is it Captain Beers or lower? I don't know. There's
Yeah,
I looked on the map, but
yeah. But not a lot of people are.
it's not
are
like a
taking
cut
those.
through.
Yeah.
No, it's
You
not.
have to know about it. It's not.
It's
local.
not like, oh wow, I'm going to
Yeah.
take this
It's local
lower.
people.
Has to be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know about it otherwise. Really.
Yeah. So there is a speeding problem. I wouldn't say that it's like way more than any other community around here. I think
Right.
every community is going through the same thing. So what is the solution to that within a community like ours?
Yeah.
I would agree with him that it makes absolute sense just to make the speed limit 25.
I've done a lot of research on this law.
Yeah. Sorry.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
So what are
You
the?
can't do. It's the law. I mean, you want to
Okay.
look up chapter
9017, is it?
9017C. I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't have the density, you cannot make roads 25 miles an hour. It's a density issue.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
We don't. It has to be a thickly settled or business district defined by certain number of dwelling houses with a certain average, less than 200 feet apart for a distance of a quarter mile or over.
Yeah. I
If you
understand that.
don't hit that,
but-
you cannot
yeah.
post the road
We,
at 25.
we do have speed that we enforce based on
Yeah.
speed greater, reasonable, proper, which also involves the width of a road or the terrain of the road and like a curve and things of that
Right,
nature.
police
So,
have that discretion
yeah,
to some extent.
and so we've had officers pull people over, like for instance on the upper part of Old Winnow Road, going 35, but they're going 5 miles over the speed limit. But again, in that exact area with someone walking a dog,
Yeah.
where you don't slow down, they're going 35 miles an hour. That is extremely
Dangerous,
fast.
yeah.
Actually, he lives on the road, so.
And there
Oh.
are
Yeah.
some.
Was it Bernie?
And there are some generally acceptable speed limits for certain types of zones.
Yeah.
School zones 20, thickly settled 30, rural 40, limited access, that's when you have a limited access highway, 50. Even if they're unposted, those are considered
Yeah.
reasonable speeds. So it's higher than people might want to hear, but those are very enforceable, very much considered if your road is unposted. The problem you run into is to post a road, you have to set a speed limit. You can't just pick a speed limit and post it. The town does have 10 roads that have gone through the Mass DOT process over the years that have posted speed limits because they have been set by and approved by Mass DOT. We have 10 of them.
Yeah, but even those don't make sense. Like if you're going one way on Colwell Road,
Yes.
it's 30, and going the other way in the same spot,
Yes,
it's
and
35.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It has to do with the way the road turns, curves, ups, downs, number of driveways. They set the speed
I
limit
know,
going
but
each way.
I don't know who's doing these. It's a straightaway.
I understand. And I don't know. It was
One
set-
way you can go 35, the other way you
It
go
was
30.
set
and
many,
it's
many
like-
years ago. In fact, we had them send us all the
Yeah.
things to do it. And so I
Yeah.
have all of the roads that were set, and they have the breakdown where they were measured 0.49 miles on this at 35 miles, at 0.41 it's 25 miles, ending at Main Street. I mean, they broke them down by section.
In
Why?
the 70s, Andre?
Why they were, that's the legal thing. You want to change these, you have to go through the process again. These are the speed limits that were set. I don't know what the date is on this one. I'd have
Said
to look at it.
1972.
Okay.
Well, what about picking like the top 10 roads and then petitioning to get those dropped
Well,
to
there-
25 or lower?
Here's the thing. There's a booklet on how to do this.
Okay.
And there's a
And
process.
and the booklets again. This is MassDOT, or there's
a procedure
another.
booklet on how to set speed limits.
And is it MassDOT
Yes.
or there's another mass agency that gets involved in certifying?
Mass DOT.
Okay.
And you have to request a special speed regulation. Just request a speed regulation, and the town has to conduct the trial run studies. So the police officers have to do this because they have to set these with radar set. No one can go out there and just guess them. The FERCog can't do it with their little road things. They have to be radar studies. And there has to be an unmarked car, radaring speeds for a minimum of 2 hours or 100 cars at each observation station. The observation stations, there's rules on how far apart those have to be and where they are on the road. You have to show the road layout in terms of where the driveways come in, where the hills and grades are, where the curves are. I mean, there's a book on how to set a speed limit. There honestly is. And you go through this whole thing and you have to send the speed control summary sheet, which logs all of that, including the geometric conditions, curves, grades, side streets, driveways, traffic signs. And you have to note the 50th and 85th percentile of the mode speeds for each listed direction at each observation station.
Mm-hmm.
And when you send that in, then they will review it by the traffic and safety section. and they will propose the regulation for the speed limit. They generally use the 85th percentile because they will assume that if 85% of the cars are going a certain speed, that's considered a safe or reasonable speed on the road.
Baloney.
They'll throw out the top and they throw out the bottom. I can only tell you what I got.
So how
I don't have to agree with it.
How did Greenfield do it?
Because Greenfield has the density to do it.
All right. So I'm just throwing this out there as a matter of a solution. Possible solution would be that if the community is agreeable to certain roads being 25 miles an hour, and the police enforce those as if they're 25 miles an hour under the speeding is
The
greater
reasonable
than,
thing.
greater than reasonable and proper.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's gonna hold up
Right. You
all
can't,
the time
and you can't post
in
it that
court
way.
when they go there, but then it doesn't look like we're just making up our own thing. So
Right.
if the town and the select board says, okay, we're going to identify these roads
Okay.
that the citizens have identified as problem areas, and we're going to consider them to be 20 that above. If you're going above 25, that's not reasonable, and then we'll have the police officers in town go by that same logic and actually give people some warnings.
And
we
we
can
can-
start off with tickets and start educating people to say, you know, listen, it's a 25 mile an hour zone here. Anything over 25, it's 25 is the prudent speed to be going. That's a possible solution. I'm not saying we're going to make that determination today.
Yeah.
Then the Gulf Road thing. I'm just speaking from being a police officer and pulling over some of these
Yeah.
trucks.
Gulf Road has a set speed limit.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, I'm moving on to the big trucks turning.
Yeah. Oh, that's a different issue.
I'm a big proponent of intent matters, so someone's intent on doing something. And so in criminal situations and also civil, like speeding and things, most 99% of the people that I've pulled over, there is no intent on anything. You know, not that long ago, some truck was turning, went up Commonwealth because that's the way their GPS was taking them. They're from Canada, never been down here. They're low on fuel. They need to get somewhere on Route 2 to go to the next fuel spot, and they're in a conundrum. It's like, well, what do? I know it said can't turn on Gulf Road, so I kept going straight. Then my GPS told me to make the next right, and then the next right, and then I pull them over, and I'm in a situation. Do I give them this, this inconsequential ticket anyways for not doing something intentionally because they were doing what their GPS told them to do. They're from Canada. They don't know this small area. So I don't know what the town wants to do about that. That's a tough call on Gulf Road as far as letting trucks up and down. So.
Okay, I don't think we're going to solve it tonight.
I'm happy to talk with you some about all the research I've done. I put it out to many communities and got a lot of feedback from other mass municipalities. So we can have a discussion because I have other comments. You have to be careful about over enforcement. A couple of them noted they've ended up in court over it. So, but I'd be happy to go through this with you, and we can maybe come up with an avenue or a path to do something different.
It's not something that is on my list of things to do.
Right,
It's just what I hear from the community, and I know that they want something done about it.
Right, and I've tried to do a lot of research on it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean we do nothing. It just means we should try to come up with a path.
Yeah.
What we need are some options, right, and how to work around, because it is, I know the whole Mass DOT thing is frustrating.
It's very prescribed.
And I know people feel strongly about their particular areas, right? I think the key thing is if somebody does have an enforcement, because one tool is the enforcement, regardless of what it's posted, is if they feel people are speeding, because a lot of people aren't necessarily going the speed limit, even if it is posted, right? Gulf Road is a perfect example of that. So, and you guys already know that and patrol that. But in the particular instances that we're talking about where it's probably less expected, there is some sort of speeding problem on Old Wendell Road on the lower side, for example, which, kind of caught me by surprise. I was glad that Alex brought it up.
Well, I'm hoping once we catch the few people that are doing it,
right,
that will solve
then
that
it's a
problem.
matter of
But
education.
we actually made a step towards that today, which is one of the variables that we have that hasn't been working well as far as the team, which is every time that you're one police officer working during the day myself is going to a domestic or going to the school to help out there or going wherever, and then paperwork takes way more longer than it used to. Also, I'm going to meetings and I'm not on Old Wendell Road
at the exact time that you need to be to catch the
At
person.
all.
Yeah.
So I've got a
Right.
lot of compliments because they like how they've seen the increased patrols, but that's more or less, I'm trying to drive around more regularly, but can I sit in one spot and be seen by the rest of the town? I absolutely can't do that. So hiring another officer, I think we'll see something in the next month or two
Okay.
change once he's got to get on,
Okay.
on patrol by himself, but that's a good, we're making steps in that direction now.
And based what you mentioned about the Ash Willett Road,
Yeah.
is if people can be specific, like I notice it's these cars at this time of day going north or south, whatever, just so that there's more specificity to the problem. So then from an enforcement standpoint, given if nothing else is going on, that, like you said, you guys were able to concentrate on that particular time period, on that particular
If they can
road.
give a time frame, time of week,
Yep,
time of day,
right,
and if they have a repeat offender, what kind of car they're driving. The
yep,
best thing is when they can actually get a plate number or something close
Okay.
to the plate number. Those are things that really help us do our jobs.
okay. Anything else from the board at this point? And so we're gonna circle back with you and Andrea. I know we're really interested in options, and I don't think we're gonna solve it
Yeah.
tonight, given Mass DOT, but from an enforcement standpoint, is making sure people are comfortable calling. And when they call, this is what I find a lot of people are not, when they're posting on Nextdoor or something, or asking me, like animal control, for example, those come up, questions come up. They're calling dispatch, right? They can call dispatch, that number, the Shelburne Control.
Yeah, I recommend that.
Right, as opposed to like calling downstairs and getting voicemail or something, is to call Shelburne Control Dispatch, which is on your webpage for the town.
I'm sure there's going to be increased complaints over the last couple of weeks because of the lightning strike, but that's a good example. Like, for instance, today I discovered when I called in my number that it just keeps ringing and ringing, doesn't go to my phone, so I got to get up
Okay,
on
so we
IT.
still have, yeah.
Yeah, those are all lightning.
But that
strike.
doesn't affect dispatch. Dispatch can
No,
radio.
which I
you
always
guys.
recommend, because then you have the officer that is aware of it right then, and that's the way to go about it, to be more fair and neutral also, because like noise complaints or barking dogs, do I want to investigate that the next day? No, I'd rather have an officer go there and make an assessment on whether the dog is barking or whether the place is too loud,
Right.
as opposed to telling me about it 2 days later, which is fine. I could follow up on those. There's one I have to follow up on tomorrow.
Right.
That happened over the weekend.
Right.
But it would be best if they called 625-8200.
Okay.
That's the Shelburne Control. They can take emergencies. They can also take non-emergencies, and they'll get a hold of the on-duty
Yeah,
officer.
I mean, that's what I've told people about animal control, is just call dispatch, and if it's a police officer or if animal control is on
Yeah.
duty and they're in the area, then dispatch is gonna make the decision about who's best who can respond to the problem, right?
I'm actually, I don't know how the community feels about it, because I feel like a little bit, because if someone works during the day on certain set hours and they don't work the weekend, maybe they feel like the animal control is not around. But I've had really good partnership with our animal control officer.
I know.
Officer Dragon.
It's just people don't realize
Deputy.
dispatch there, and they
Yeah.
don't wanna call 911 because
Yeah.
it's not an emergency.
But I think there might have been some past lack of follow-up or something, but I don't feel like that's currently what's going on with
No.
animal. And they just hired another animal control officer
Oh,
to help
part-timer?
that animal control officer.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
I'm confident that when people call about animal control, animal issues,
Yes, and-
that we're handling it.
Yep.
And also, we utilize animal control officer that it knows all the little intricacies a little bit.
Yeah, really my point is not the animal control so much as the call dispatch.
Yes.
If you have a concern about anything, animals, speeding, whatever, call dispatch,
Yes.
because they're there all the time. They're gonna contact whomever is on duty
Yeah.
and can respond.
And
right?
I do receive a lot of phone calls so people are also calling me. I
Yeah.
don't mind if they do that and leave a message.
Right.
And also they contact us on the
Yeah.
website, and I could send an email.
Yep.
All those are perfectly fine. But if it's something that an officer can go at the time and maybe make an assessment so that we have
Then call
understand-
dispatch.
I would
Yeah.
recommend doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna come back to that. Okay,
All right.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you for
John.
all that.
Chief.
Yikes. Okay. We need to sign the purchase and sale agreement for the snow property, and we're doing. There you go.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Already signed by Mr.
By the
Snow.
seller.
Oh, yeah.
So do we need a motion to that effect? We're voting to
There's the money. That's what I was
sign
looking
that?
for.
Yep. in your motion
Purchase
sign.
price.
To sign
Didn't
it.
we already vote on that at one point?
Not to sign the actual
Not to
agreement.
sign it.
You haven't had it before you
Okay.
in its
We
form.
voted on the purchase.
Yes.
Yeah.
How exactly would that motion be played out for official record?
Is it just as simple as sign purchase and sale agreement for the Snow property?
I think so.
Is that cool enough?
Okay.
I think so.
You're the expert.
Alrighty. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Motion to sign and accept the purchase agreement and sale of the Snow property.
Motion and a
Second?
second from Bernie. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
So now that we're going to, I think it, does it have all of you?
It does, yes.
It does. Now that we do that, I've already told the surveyor to finish that up. Their next step is going to be to go get the A&R before the planning board, which is the actual new plot. And the planning board signs off on that, and then we can have the closing and file the documents and actually own it.
And an A&R stands for approval not
Approval
required?
not required, because it's essentially the planning board signs off on it, they get to see every lot, but they don't really have any ability to change what you're asking them to do.
Okay.
But it is something that goes through the planning board, and then it becomes an official plot.
A plot, because it's not a,
Because right now it's part of a plot,
it's part of a larger plot.
so it will be coming off.
Okay.
We've already drawn up we already know what that looks like. That's been that's been to Mr. Snow. He already has seen and agreed on what that actually looks like. And here's the actual lot. So we already
Okay.
know what it will look like. There's the
Outstanding.
2.96
What a nice
acres.
looking map. Look at that.
piece of lot.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh yeah, it's been surveyed.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to have it exactly. So then they'll do the final Mylars and the final pieces that will then go to the planning board. Once they're signed off on, they can be filed with the registry, and then we can do the closing and the property will be done.
Okay.
Names of the dam, they even have that. Wow, they got pretty detailed. Yeah. Wonderful.
Okay, so next up is the A&R at the planning
Planning board,
board,
right.
and then we're done? I
Well,
mean,
then
as a
it has to
town.
then it has to go to, there'll be a closing, additional closing.
Oh.
And then there will be.
Just
we'll
like a
have to
normal
actually
process,
pay
yeah.
for it and get a deed, and then we'll have to file that deed. But our attorneys are all part of that process. We have a real estate attorney.
Do I need to fill in that date?
Yes, we need to date it.
Oops,
Yep.
I'll just finish that. Okay,
Oh. It's okay.
It's
next.
fine, no one's gonna care. If it
You
says
know,
fine.
once you start writing the date, it's like, if you ever do a check or
Finish it
something,
off.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
whether you type it in for me or not, I'm still gonna put it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to the next thing. So following up, as I mentioned at the last meeting, what we need to do tonight is vote to extend the design, development, and project management, which we're calling phase 2, but what I wanted to do was just spell out that we're extending the design, development, and project management that we've already established there, taking it to the next level, I guess you would call it, next level of detail, in order to really advise the town further on what that building might look like.
That's phase 1.
So we're basically stating that we're staying in phase 1.
No,
That's what we're doing.
No, that we're
Moving
moving
to phase
to
2.
extend the design, development, and project management that was
Gotcha.
discussed at the last meeting, to move that forward. I think that's a better way of saying
Because
it.
until we get a design, an actual design, we can't get certain permits from like EPA, DEP, things like that.
Gotta go to
Until
phase
they
2.
See everything
yes.
finalized, right?
Yes, you
What-
can't take all the boards and committees without having more detailed
Right.
site plans.
And we can't get engineering bids without
Right,
more detail as
exactly.
You have to
well.
have the bid
so-
specs.
And
Has to be
that will
designed.
tell us what the cost is going to be, so.
Yeah.
Right now, all we have is the conceptual design, and that's what we voted to accept
Okay.
at the last meeting, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, we've gone through enough of this at this point, between meeting with all the design people and our emergency services individuals, that we're prepared to move to the next phase.
correct.
You've already appropriated the funding to actually pay for that, so you're not doing anything that you wouldn't already have funded.
Okay.
That was important.
Yes, and this is a good time to remind everybody, we're scheduled for a public forum on Monday, October 17th at
6:30.
6:30. I gotta correct my next door post.
Yes, I think we put in for 6 to 9, so I think we have to start at 6:30 if we're gonna actually get there and set up.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, I will correct that.
In the end,
We have to put it on the website. It's at the high school,
which
in the auditorium.
which phase or green light is the town itself responsible for? Is that like phase 3, or the actual building has to go before town meeting?
The
Construction.
Well, I mean, we're going to have informational sessions along the way. We're hoping that once that we actually have sort of the final specs, we'll be able to inform people what that final plot plan, what it is, because they still have to do that now. Because once you go to final design, you find little things that might change in the footage. Like this room turns out you have to move it a little because the air vents have to, when you get to that level of detail, small things can happen, but conceptually it's correct. They've already discovered one thing where it has to move a little bit on the lot. It has to move over a little bit by some feet to get it away from the water because they had a different flaggings. So all that'll come before. Probably we'll show that at the meeting as well. The new concept. But the next time the board, this town will actually vote, make an action, that's going to be at a town meeting, which we're hopefully proposing to do in April for this project, for the town to authorize the funding of this project. That will be the next town vote. That doesn't mean we won't have information along the way. It's just that we wanted to do it so that they had actual numbers. So this will go all the way through design and development. This will go through bidding. Then we'll have real numbers to take to the town, because once we have real numbers and we're sitting on it holding a bid, we can see the actual impact. We can know exactly what those numbers mean. We'll know exactly what the financing will cost. We'll know exactly, you can go two ways. You can go to town meeting with estimates that then people, they want real numbers. So in order to go through that whole process, there's some expense to doing that, but on the other side, we come with real data. We come with real numbers. If the town votes at that point to support the project, to authorize the borrowing, because it will be a borrowing, probably bonds, will be in the bond market. Once we get through the town votes to do that, then you will construct the building. But the town will see real data at that point. They'll have real numbers and be able to make the decision based on that.
So some of the questions that came up at the last meeting, like James asked about fill, for example, those things
they have to go through all the committees. They have to go through Conservation Commission. We have to go to the Planning Board. We'll have to go to the ZBA.
Yep.
All of that process will have to occur before they can finally complete the project anyway, to bid it.
Which is what a lot of people were worried about.
Conditions.
Right. So a lot of the questions that came up in the discussion of phase 1 are really destined for phase 2, which is we do the public forum just to map out the next 6 months. We do the public forum on October 17th, so that's October. And then in the intervening time, things get more detailed. You get engineering bids, et cetera, so you get the cost information. And at the same time, you're going in front of the Conservation Commission as well as the Planning Board.
They'll do that first.
Yeah, before they
It's
get.
going to be late fall into winter,
Right.
before you release a bid, because that all factors
I'm not laying it out in sequence
That
so
all
much as
factors
like
into
the
your
next
specs.
6 months are really answering a lot of the questions that have come up over phase 1.
Because they can't finalize
Yep.
what they're doing until the Concom might give them a set of conditions, or the Planning
Yep.
Board might say you have to do this with lighting or parking.
Yep.
They have to go through all of that to do the final design that
Yep.
they're going to put forward as a bid.
That's right.
Yep. And then special town meeting, hopefully in April, and that will just focus on this topic solely.
Yes.
And it will include another public forum as well as the special town meeting.
Because at that time we can present much
Right.
more detailed data. in
Right.
terms of numbers.
But what I told people on Nextdoor was, mark your calendars for October 17th. And then it's especially for people who haven't been paying attention or the last time they knew anything was at the last town meeting, then we're going to revisit past, present, and future of this facility. So that's why October 17th is important, because we kind of recap everything to this point. Okay. All right, so can I get a vote to extend the design? Do we need to mention Keolo and Beanick, and do we actually have to have the names in there in the motion?
I think that to authorize, yes, both of those entities to move forward with the next phase of their contract.
What are the names?
Collier's Project
Is
Management.
your OPM, and Keolo and Beanick is your architect.
Keolo.
Keolo.
Kale and who?
Beanick.
Beanick.
As the who?
They are your
B-I-E.
architect designers. I have their name in here somewhere.
Okay.
Are you crafting a motion, Alex?
I haven't.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
Oh. Yes.
Good
I'll
luck with,
just-
good
I'll
luck
keep
with it. We're like rooting for you. There's a few
Master
names
work.
in there. What?
Master at work.
Yes.
Wow, my reputation precedes me. I couldn't resist.
No, seriously.
Oh, you better make this good.
Yeah.
My
Not that
wife's
we're
gonna
gonna
throw a
judge or
bottle at the
anything.
TV right now. I will make a motion to vote and extend the design, development, and project management for the emergency services facility to enter into phase 2 with Collier's, our OPM, and Kale and Bienick, our architectural design
Nice.
team.
Second.
Excellent. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Select board priorities update.
Priorities update, huh? We have priorities to update.
Well, I mean, you have a couple of different things. You had a workshop a year ago, which but I think that you guys should not do the workshop again, but I think at some point you should repeat the process of looking at your old priorities, where you can check
Oh,
things
absolutely.
off.
Yeah.
What are your new priorities
Yep.
and next steps?
Yep.
So my suggestion to B was that you actually set this as one of your, and you figure out what time of the year you want to do it. This was done in January. Do you want to, do it as to the next year? This was your comment.
I say we do it in January.
Which one was mine?
I think that was you.
Avoiding lawsuits? Yeah, that is my comment.
And that's the first step. And then I think there's a document. I thought I had it printed out here.
Is that the
B
one that I did?
had-
Yeah.
Right, that you had. And I had it here somewhere, but on the queen of paper. So.
I remember this.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are just my notes on it.
So
So
then
we tried to put it together, and I think B put together.
in May, I took all of those and I put them into a document.
Right.
And what I have been doing that I will send out, I just wanted to have a discussion about when you wanted to talk about it. What I've been trying to do is keep abreast of what we've actually accomplished against those priorities. So I'm going to send out the document. It might just be worth it to do a quick look at it at a meeting where it's relatively light, the agenda, maybe December, before we get into the budget and like all that stuff starts coming to the forefront. But I will send out the document. I think I'm going to put it into a spreadsheet because I have so much that we've done, like this meeting tonight. And another one of our priorities was to kick off the budget year with the school committee and the finance committee, and that's going to be coming up in November. So there's a few more accomplishments or updates that I want to add to it, and then I'll just send it out, and maybe we can take a look just before we get into January or whenever the meeting appears to be light.
Okay,
Yep.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
very good.
Okay, so that's just an update on the update. Okay, topics I don't think we have anything that's 48 hours. Citizens' concerns. I thought the Wymans might be here, but no.
No, they didn't show.
Maybe they're watching
but,
from home.
Just as long as it's been acknowledged at this point that the the Wymans have stressed concern about speeding
Yeah.
issues on Old Wendell. So,
Okay.
Take that.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing it up, and as we discussed, it's more complicated, so we're going to have to come back to it anyway. Okay, and then under correspondence, we have a resignation from Jennifer Tufts from the Open Space Committee.
Yes, you do.
So,
Announcement.
oh, it's really nice. I think I'll read this. I'm writing to notify you of my resignation from the Open Space Committee for the town of Northfield. It has been an honor to serve on this committee and watch the objectives grow and change throughout the process of crafting 3 open space and recreation plans since 2005. I am grateful to the people of Northfield for their support for the goals of the Open Space and Recreation Plan, and to all the members of this committee who have made the work of the committee so rewarding over the years. Sincerely, Jennifer Tufts.
Ah,
Oh, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you for your service. That's a long time. So do we need a motion, or we're just acknowledging the resignation? We accept the resignation with regret? I think
You
we
can.
did.
I think
Okay.
we've always done
You
that.
can.
Yeah, okay. Can we get a motion to accept the resignation of Jennifer Tufts from the Open Space Committee
With regret.
with regret?
So moved.
Okay, second? All those in favor, reluctantly?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay, you can't go.
Oh, you can't. Well,
We refuse to accept the resignation.
Yeah, how would that work if the select board just
That's
goes- Like, we
interesting.
refuse.
I don't think you can keep her.
You can't-
force her
you
to
can't
be on
do
it.
That's a violation of her First Amendment right.
Sorry,
My
Jennifer.
name
We
doesn't
regret to
mean
inform you that we
You gotta stay.
against your
change that to a
resignation.
yay. Okay.
Where
Um,
we thought.
So I got some correspondence as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Please share.
this is very nice. It's from Elizabeth Nett. I know for a fact she's not a resident of Northfield, but Alex, yeah, finally, charge point, you did it. Now I can get easily in the winter to visit my son in New Hampshire. Elizabeth has a Nissan Leaf. They don't have the largest of electrical range. It is a full electric vehicle, but the point of this message is that she can now stop in Northfield to fuel up electricity into her electric vehicle and proceed onwards. So
Oh, how nice.
glad to be able to help you out,
Take
Elizabeth.
that one home and bring it.
Yeah.
And were you saying this was your driving instructor?
Yeah, she was my driving instructor when I was 16. So
Oh,
it just goes to show you how small the world is, and I'm glad that she has noted that I have been pro-electricity for Northfield. So.
excellent. Thank you for
So that
sharing
means
it.
you're going to get your own electric vehicle.
You see, you gotta know how to play
We need
both
to
sides
get
of
that
the
on
field.
record.
No,
Put that in the minutes.
Those new Mustangs are
We don't
something
need.
else.
We don't need. We'll redact that from the minutes. We don't need-
Yeah, what? Well, I told you sometime we're going to have our new well, she's not new, but she's new to Northfield. Our representative Susanna Whips,
Susanna Whips.
who's a big proponent of. She has the Mustang. What's it called? The Mach.
She's the Mach
the
4.
Mach-
She's
Mach
Mach 3
E.
or 4.
Mach-E.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
she's
The
a
Mach
3
E.
or 4. I don't know which version she has, but she's one of
And she's quite proud of the torque and the 0 to 60
them.
on
There's a
that.
lot of drivers.
Yeah, there.
So I'm like, I've got somebody I want you to meet.
Talk about this. So.
Yeah, so we'll talk about. I'm sorry. I texted him right after that. I'm like,
I did want to jump back. I'm sorry, I missed
Oh, go ahead.
the topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting. My topic would be a hurricane, because as you will note, I'm here tonight.
Oh, right. Thank you.
I
Yes.
wasn't going to be. However, there was a hurricane in Florida. Even though it wasn't going to the West Coast, it was determined that probably didn't make a lot of sense to fly in.
To be flying in.
To
Yeah.
fly into the airport and be traveling anywhere near the Keys during a hurricane.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I am moving my time forward. We did reschedule. So, we'll send this around to you. I think I sent you all an email
I
just
got the
telling you
email,
I'm
yeah.
still
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
I'm going for a few more weeks.
So do we
Yeah.
need to resign? We need to.
It's up to you if
resign?
you want to reaccept. I did rewrite it out, so there will be. It would be. I attached it to the old one, so
Okay.
she already certified that I had the time. But I just pushed it forward, so.
Then, do we need to do a new motion then to reflect the
I would.
dates? Okay,
That's fine, if you want to accept.
Motion to accept and
the rescheduled.
motion to accept and reschedule time off as written.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor? You want to
Aye.
look?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Yeah, and we
probably
got
held
the-
it, but I wanted to give you all a heads up on when that
Right.
time's
No,
coming,
that's
because it
fair,
would be
yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
close to,
I put it in my calendar,
so.
just so I don't keep asking you, when? Does anyone else?
There are times on the back attached when I will be working.
Okay.
And there is a November 1st select board meeting, which I intend to attend courtesy of Mr. Musk,
Oh, okay. Starlink.
Starling.
Okay. Committee and board appointments, none? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Proposed agenda items.
6:30.
I've got a few. Can you pass that back? Anything, let's see. I'm not sure about October 18th. So we have I just want to point out to folks, we have because it's coming up under announcements. So we're meeting, this says 6 p.m., so it's
It's 6:30.
Okay, so we've got Monday, October 17th, and then we have our normal meeting would be on Tuesday, October 18th. And I'm trying not to overload it because I'm pretty sure Monday night's going to be long. But some of the things that are on my list are, we have an ARPA meeting coming up, so we will have ARPA things coming through the select board.
Yes.
We've talked about doing a highway update at some point, just to all of the different things that we've been talking about, as well as it's time to close the cemeteries. So that would be part of the highway update. And, most importantly, well, not most importantly, but really important is the results of the hiring of the
Yes.
grant development director.
Should be at that meeting, yes.
The appointment of that person should be at the very next meeting. So,
Did she accept the offer?
We are negotiating.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you're negotiating, okay.
Just start date and,
Well, I didn't know what
Details.
the process was, if you're
Yes.
dealing with the two people that were
Yes.
the finalists. And
okay, so we want to keep that at the top of the list as soon as
I
possible. We
think
want to
it'll
lock.
be fine.
Mhm.
Just waiting to hear.
Okay. And then in November, as I mentioned, we will have a kickoff with the school committee and the finance committee, and that will, right, tentatively is November 15th,
Yes.
if we can
And-
get the finance committee. The PVRS has said yes.
And if you decide it might also be a time,
The
because
auditor.
it will be a joint meeting with the finance committee, it might be a time to bring in the auditor.
I think it's a perfect time to bring
Because
in the
then
auditor.
you'll all be in the meeting together.
Okay, so then we're kind of working around what would be November 1st, I think, and the end of November
Well,
for other topics. But so I just wanted to throw
we
all of
wanted
that.
to talk about your schedule, and that might have just a quick bearing on it. Because you have 3 meetings in November,
Yeah,
and the dates for the meetings in December are, for example, like the 27th, which is kind of close to the holidays.
yeah,
It might be worth considering something like, and just you think about it, you don't have to make a decision tonight, we can put it on the next
Yeah.
agenda, is doing the 1st and the 15th, and then going off schedule for December, doing the 6th and the 20th.
Oh, so
instead
then
of
we
the
can
13th
avoid-
And the 27th, and then
Yeah.
you don't meet again, you give 2 weeks off between the Christmas and New Year,
Ugh.
very slow time for most offices are closed, then you
Right.
don't meet again till January 10th. That would give you
How's
2
that
weeks at
sound?
the holidays, and get back on schedule.
I think we're due for a.
No, we may have to have you come in
I don't
and
know about
sign
you
some
guys, but I feel
warrants.
like I'm due for a break.
Oh, sure.
So just take a look at the calendar.
it's been a while
We skipped
since
the
I've been on
December,
vacation.
we skipped the last November meeting, and you moved 2 weeks up, 2
Okay.
weeks back in
Okay.
December to be done by the 20th.
I'm liking it.
Take a couple weeks off. Now, you may have to come in to sign some warrants.
Yeah, we know, yep.
Because we don't want to get off calendar permanently, otherwise
Oh,
you get
no.
off the warrant week and that becomes.
Yeah.
hard. Then January 10th, you'd go back on schedule.
Yeah, and also just a heads up too,
It
not
gives
that
you
I'm
Christmas
taking
week
time
and
off,
New
but
Year's week off. Gives you Christmas week and New Year's week off.
I'm not really taking time off, but if we kind of lighten the meeting load around the holidays, then it's better from a family standpoint, but also with the First Light negotiations, this last phase is pretty intense, so I have quite a few like 2 and 3 hour meetings, and we're gonna have to use one of those meetings for an executive session on what might be coming out of the settlement.
They want to do it by the end of the year. So
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, just FYI.
So we'll put
I'm not
that on-
totally
we'll put that on the
slacking.
agenda for next meeting. If everybody wants to take a look at what we kind of mean by that, you guys can vote to change your schedule.
Can you
for
send out an
December.
email to the effect,
Yeah.
just so that people, I
Can
know
look
I
at
like
this-
to look
look
at
at
my
the
laptop
calendar.
and look at the whole calendar over 2 or 3 months. Okay, that sounds good. Anything else? Nope. Announcements, as we've mentioned more than once, emergency services facility. The public forum is Monday, October 17th at 6:30. I will correct my next door post in the PVRS auditorium.
We did put that on the website.
Oh, you already did? Okay, great.
So it'll be on the website.
Yep, so anyone who signed up for email notifications will get that. And the Franklin County Solid Waste Management District Clean Sweep Day is Saturday, October 22nd, 9 a.m. to noon at the Northfield Highway Garage. And any other announcements? Nope. Recognition for service. I have a couple of shout outs. Anybody else have shout outs before I launch into? Nope. I was a judge at the dog show at the library on Saturday. And I just want to let everyone know what a great event that was. And it made me think of our priorities about how to reach out. And I'm realizing rather than like adding extra events, if we just kind of pick different community events to go to, they end up seeing their select person sitting there judging dogs. But it was a lot of fun, and there were actually a lot of people there, and I'm meeting people that I normally wouldn't run into, especially people with small children. And the other thing is the Happy Feet
I was going to say that one. The seniors who are
pictures
doing the
are in the recorder. I posted a link on Nextdoor. They're so cute, both the seniors and the little people from the little kindergartners from, and I saw in one of the pics, I saw the principal was in the walk too. So
I got to
anyhow,
officially meet him.
so 2 shout outs for those nice community things, and a shout out to Colleen and the Senior Center for doing all that she does and so positively. Okay, motion to
They do have a flu and
vaccine clinic
vaccine
tomorrow.
clinic.
Yep,
Um,
you have to register though.
right. But if
Yeah.
people want to register, I think it's on is it on the FERCog site to register?
Yep.
But we can get that information. I could probably put it on the senior page on the website too.
Yes.
But people can still register and come in and do it. We just
Yeah.
want you to know, even though people think, oh, it's tomorrow, please look, because I think there's still some slots.
Okay,
if you're
I'll be there.
interested.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh,
So moved.
so moved. Second?
Sure. Second.
Do you want to do the so moved?
Well, you had said the motion though. You
Oh, I'm
literally.
sorry.
So you can make a motion once in a while.
I guess so, yeah. I've been pretty good. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
So long.